Greetings everybody, how y'all doing today? I'm here to announce the Solstice sale where we are offering up to 30% off of these customized packages that I whipped together, these botanicals, these compounds that I formulate. I made sure I made these individual packages to address particular concerns amongst people as we transcend through this solstice. So what is a solstice? I keep using that word, where there's summer solstice and there's winter solstice, correct? Yes. And what are we about to experience? The winter solstice, all right? Is it upon us? Now, etymologically, solstice translates into sol, right? Which represents sun, like sol and solar. And then this part represents stillness. Stillness, okay? Because it represents the sun being at a still point, a syncope, really your soul, because this is the time we're supposed to be going inside, connecting with very powerful cosmic forces and cosmic energies. And this is why these holidays market, so much sugar, starting off with Halloween, and the excessive amount of flesh and starch and dairy between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then the extensive alcohol, for the new year. All of this kind of prevents the body from being able to do the work it needs to do and really receive the energies that are existing, at this current time, that's like gold. So I wanted to offer, a sale, celebrating the solstice, in which I can offer the people, different types of modalities to assist them with problems that they may be having. So today I'm going to go into two of the packages, and some of its contents in regards to the body. So we're going to talk about the kidney, we're going to talk about the nerves and brain, and then tomorrow, I'll go into the other ones, which will be like galactagogues for breastfeeding, as well as going into C3 a little bit more in detail. All right. So, as I said, this is one of the packages right here. This one is 20% off, all right? Once again, go to luvgreenlife@gmail.com for your inquiry. This is the immune system cleanse. Now, even though it says cleanse, all right, it's not just about detoxing, it's about replenishment too. So it's not just detox, it's redox. And here we got Renalite, C3, Immunoblast, and Juglidine. Well, we went over Juglidine, we went over C3. We're going to talk about Renalite today, okay? And I'm going to go into Immunoblast a little bit in the next presentation. So let's talk about this Renalite. In order to understand Renalite, we got to understand the kidneys, all right? The kidneys. Now, when you look at the kidneys kind of stand towards the back. They represent the scales, and this is where your emotions are held. A lot of people that have kidney issues are depressed or sad, or could even be bipolar, because of the lack of proper filtration that's occurring in the kidneys. So in order to understand how the kidneys function, let's go ahead and flow through, the anatomical and the physiological structure and processes that occur inside of the renal system, okay, which is kidney. So here you got large arteries and veins, okay? You got the vena cava, and then you also have the actual renal artery, all right? These thick vessels right here. So when blood is flowing, it flows into the kidney and it flows away from the kidney, okay? The blood that's flowing to the kidney is there so that, you can get your Moses on. You can split the Red Sea, so to speak, so that you can separate the red blood cells and certain solutes from waste material, okay, and a certain amount of water to stabilize pressure in your body that you secrete in the form of urine, or excrete rather, in the form of urine, all right? Now, if you notice here, you got kidneys, okay, and then you have the ureters, okay, that enter into the bladder, all right, and the bladder, which is the scale itself, because that's how you got to use the bathroom, because of the weight of the water, right, and then that leads to the urethra, which we all urinate from, okay. Now, kidney, all right, this is the outer part of it, okay, which you would call the cortex, or rather the renal capsule, some adipose tissue, some fat, and the ureter coming out. And then, here you see how the artery and the vein, sit. inside of it as well, you know, just so you could get a visual. Now, if we remove the renal capsule so we can go inside the cortex and the medulla of the kidney, all right, here's the peeling back, and here's a slice so you can see, how the arteries are going in, the veins going out. We got renal pyramids, okay, we have the cortex and we have the medulla, okay, and then you have the renal pelvis that dumps, okay, all of the filtered materials from the collecting duct down into the ureter as it goes onto the bladder, you know, so you can end up urinating. All right. Now, just to understand, this kidney with these vessels, it's not just one mass. It's really a compilation of almost 4 million individual units called nephrons. Okay, this is what makes your kidney up. If you were to go into your kidney and see what it was composed of, that's what it's composed of. Okay. So as the artery, as the blood is coming into the kidneys, what ends up happening is the capillaries, the arteries turn to an arteriole, the arterioles turn to a capillary, which is a smaller vessel, and the capillaries form these little balls, all right, called glomerulus or glomerulus, okay? And this ball is specialized, okay? Well, what's special about this ball? Well, the ball has layers, okay? Let's go to these layers. Let me show you what I mean. This ball has layers, all right? Where one layer, which is the actual capillary itself, the epithelial cells, have holes in them, and those holes are called fenestrae. Then you have a base membrane, this blue ring that goes around it. Then you have these cells, right, that are kind of like octopi. They're called podocytes, P-O-D for foot, like iPod. And the podocytes or tripod interlock and create another layer of filtration. So it's kind of like having a colander, a strainer, and cheesecloth, one sitting inside of the other, to offer different levels of filtration as the fluid flows through those three mediums, okay? So that's what's going on with this glomerulus, okay? So this is a picture of the nephron, artery, vein, arteriole coming in, turning into capillary, forms glomerulus, and then around the glomerulus there's a cap, okay, called the Bowman's capsule. Bowman's capsule, because it encapsulates the glomerulus, all right? And this is part of your tubular system of your renal system, which leads to the urine. If you can notice, this is red and blue, this is tan, this is dealing with pumping blood around, oxygenated, deoxygenated, nutrients, non-nutrients, and this is responsible for transporting urea, okay, to become urine. So it gets filtered here in this Bowman's capsule, and the filtrate enters into the actual Bowman's capsule, this proximal tubule, proximal meaning close, descending limb, loop of Henle, ascending limb, distal tubule, collecting duct. This is where vitamin D gets activated, in the proximal tubule in your kidneys, okay? Calcitriol. All right? So, once again, 7-dehydrocholesterol, check my vitamin D video, subcutaneous to the liver, to the kidneys, and then that's when it's active, so it can allow you to absorb calcium in your body. Now, if there's issues with vitamin D production and there's issues with taking up calcium, then you're going to have problems in calcium metabolism, which can lead to kidney stones, which we will get into shortly, you know, or what you would call renal calculi. All right. So this is the renin, angiotensin aldosterone system, or RAS, and this is how a lot of people, I feel, get misdiagnosed with high blood pressure, because what's really happening is they're anemic from the lack of iron. A lot of our people are, so our blood pressure drops exponentially, and our kidney, liver, and lungs kick in to stimulate the RAS system, and overall what the RAS system does is when your blood pressure is too low, it raises your blood pressure. So you got, you know, an enzyme reaction, you know, that occurs in which the liver creates angiotensin 1, the lungs secrete ACE, okay, and y'all know about ACE inhibitors, you know, angiotensin converting enzyme, okay, in which that turns into angiotensin 2. You know, from there it stimulates the kidney, the adrenal cortex sitting on top of the kidney like a little pyramid sitting on top of your head. That ends up doing what? Secreting something now called aldosterone. And this process encourages high blood pressure through vasoconstriction, the constricting of your vessels. You know, if you have a certain amount of water flowing through the hose and I change the diameter of that hose, where I shrink it and make the hose diameter smaller, that and keep the water constant, then guess what? I'm going to increase the pressure of that water flowing through the hose. So this is what happens. So a lot of times people go in and they get high blood pressure readings is because they really got low blood pressure from the lack of iron, and their body's kicking their blood pressure up, and now it's high. So then you start getting ACE inhibitors and all this other stuff. Low blood pressure medication that has all these side effects, but really don't assist in what the underlying problem was, which is usually lack of ascorbate and lack of iron. Okay. All right, so let's push forward. All right, so once again, filtration membrane is, or filtrate of the glomerulus is in 3 layers. This is the capillary right here, okay? The plasma is, the blood is flowing. These are the fenestrae, the holes in between as it flows through the holes. It then has the basement membrane, which is a meshwork like Brillo pad. You know, Brillo is all those fine little, metal strings and fibers kind of laid, in a net-like arrangement. That's what this membrane is like. And then there is the pods, of the podocytes that interlock and create a filtration slit, as you see on my hand where my fingers interlock. That adds the other layer of filtration. This is the filtrate. This is to make sure you don't lose blood. You don't want to urinate blood. You don't want to lose vital minerals that your body needs to use, as you urinate. So it has to get retained. Okay, it has to get retained. And the funny thing is that when you go into the tubes, okay, of the nephron, the reason why you still have capillaries down here around this tube is because once things are filtered, sometimes your body might need more calcium, or might need more potassium, or might need more minerals that you just allow to pass through. And if there's acidity, because there's a very pH specific situation going on here, that can dilate the holes, that can shrink the holes, okay, that can thin the base membrane, that can thicken the base membrane. So now you have a different rate of flow that occurs, and now you have certain solutes that normally wouldn't filter through, get through, and now you got blood in here, or you got high protein metabolites coming out of your urine, or it might get too small and certain things that need to leave get retained, like calcium might stay in the blood and increase and get an overabundance. Now you get calcification throughout your body and kidney stones and things like that. So we have a lot of different issues that can occur inside of our renal system. And it takes being able to understand some basic concepts of how it works in order to offset any of the problems. So this is how the renal light works. And it does this with a very powerful herb in there called hydrangea. A lot of y'all know it. Multicolored, kind of bouquet of little flowers. Comes in different colors. It's called hydrangea. Like hydrogen, it means water, okay? That's what it translates into. And it contains some radioactive elements inside, which, would actually glow in the dark, if you did some experiments. Very, very powerful in the roots. Now, the issue is, people you're not supposed to just run out and get hydrangea, because you got to know how to soak it. You got to know how to pull the innate materials in and out. And that takes, certain processes in order to do that. A lot of these plants, in order to extrapolate their hidden gold, their hidden treasures, you have to know how to properly, do these processes so you can get it out. So Renalite definitely has the process to pull the potent properties of the hydrangea out, as well as another African herb by the name of Desmodium, which is amazing. All right, so that, along with a lot of other things, because it's a compound, ends up assisting with the pressurized filtration system that the kidney is. Okay, so this is another blow up. Here's the capsule, so you can see the inside. These are the capillaries all bundled up, and then the different layers of filtration. This is, as you see, proximal convoluted tubule. This is where vitamin D is activated at. Okay. So here are a list of kidney stones, and they all come from different sources: calcium oxalate, increase of uric acid, increase of struvite. Okay, these are all, and cysteine. You know, when there's an imbalance in metabolism of these particular molecular structures, a cohesion and an agglutination occurs, or an amalgamation of these molecules occur that cause them to what? To calcify, to turn into these small little stones. But the same way you were able to create these stones, you take properties that are able to what? Dissolve the stones. You see what I'm saying? So if I take sugar and put it in cold water, it might not dissolve that well, but when I put it in warm water, now it does. You see what I'm saying? So in your body, these stones normally don't, but when you add certain properties to your body, they can wear these down and then dissolve them into their individual parts, so then you can pass them when you urinate. All right? And that's the whole idea of it. So dialyzers try to, it's supposed to be a false sense of a kidney in which it's, the dialyzer itself is supposed to have its own specific mixture of solutes that's balanced with a normal range in the body. So if your body has an overabundance of solutes because your kidneys aren't working properly and you can't, you're not getting them out, then the dialyzer allows that fluid to come out and then replenish your body with its balance. But the kidney does so much more, as I'm showing you now, as I showed you before, and the dialyzer does not replicate those things. You have the ability to handle and take care of all these issues that occur within inside of you. So GFR represents glomerular filtration rate. Okay, glomerular filtration rate, like glomerulus or glomerulus, as I said earlier. And the reason why it says GFR 60 is because a normal range of the GFR, meaning the rate at which your kidney is filtering fluid, is supposed to be 100 milliliters per minute per 1.73 meters squared. This is dealing with kind of the mass, the area of the body. This is the time, and this is the actual liquid amount. So how much liquid per minute is happening based on this area, this space that your body occupies. Okay, so 100 to 130. All right, and then with women, it's 90 to 120. Okay, so it's definitely a different balance there. Now that rate can go up and it can drop. Okay, so when you're talking about GFR 60, what you're saying is you have reached 60 milliliters, per minute per 1.73, and from there, that's where you talk about kidney failure, and it starts breaking down more and more and more from that point. So between 6 and 20 milligrams of urea nitrogen per 100 milliliter of blood, this is a normal reading for BUN, which represents blood urea nitrogen. Okay, that's another reading that people usually get to see what their kidneys are like and their redox potential. So I suggest people, you looking further to this. All right. Now I know I spent a lot of time on the kidney. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the nerves real quick and kind of explain a little about nervino and histonic. This nervous system cleanse is 20% off. All right. So once again, luvgreenlife@gmail.com, luvgreenlife@gmail.com for the inquiry. Let's jump on in. Okay, so resveratrol and prickly ash are the star herbs that I'm talking about right now. Resveratrol is not really a herb, but really a still being a compound within a herb. This particular molecule, though, is inside the histonic along with a host of other powerful African herbs, and then prickly ash is the star of my nervino. So resveratrol is the plant analog of tyrosine. Okay, it helps with mitochondrial health, helps with heart attacks and brain trauma. Minister Inky and I introduced this product before the movie Concussion came out, because we found out that people that suffer from concussions suffer from the same thing that people do that have, real bad toxicity through their diet, and vice versa. So we were like, we needed to come up with something. So I have the papers and studies on this as well, and the research that I've done. And prickly ash is a sialagogue, which deals with salivation, salivating, being able to create enough saliva, and it's a nerve stimulant, for healing the nerves. So let's see why that's so important right now. When you look at a nerve is composed of the dendrites, which means tree, soma, which means body, axon, which is an arm, as well as the synaptic knobs at the end of the axon terminal. These are right here myelin sheaves, which represent insulation the same way, you know, insulation provides for a wire. It helps conductivity increase exponentially so that messages can process. So the message received from the dendrite processed in the body, sent down the axon, and then it jumps, you know, from the synaptic knob. So this is a blow up of the soma, the body, where the nucleus is, the mitochondria, the endoplasmic reticulum, you know, where all the work and everything occurs inside. And then here is the axon, the long arm that, you know, propagates that particular signal, you know, and then at the end you got all these synaptic knobs, and this is a blow up of the synaptic knob and a synaptic cleft on the corresponding nerve that's going to pick up the signal, you know, like you playing the telephone game from one nerve to the next. Okay, so what happens here is as a signal induces down the course of the axon and hits the synaptic knob, it causes neurotransmitters to be released so that the corresponding nerve can bring it in. So, you know, you need that to coordinate very, very well in order to have, you know, good health, obviously. And Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that are a problem where the microtubules in those nerves that keep the structure and allow this to happen, you know, in a refined manner breaks down and erodes, especially the tau protein, which represents like rivets on genes, but they're on the microtubules, keeping them together. Now, this is a picture of the substantia nigra, as you see right here on the brainstem, medulla oblongata. It's a slice. This is a very strong melanated area of the brain that gets pallor, meaning the melanin gets oxidized with dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and a lot of, and even in, you know, concussion victims too. So it's all about remelanating this area with those tyrosine, and this is locus ceruleus, which is the blue spot, another melanated area of the brain that is very important that also gets oxidized. So this resveratrol, being a tyrosine analog, helps with the melanizing and the melanin, you know, being restored in these powerful areas, you know, that are so important. And then also it deals with the acetylation, deacetylation that the histones do on the DNA. So when you have DNA, histones are responsible for what? Roping it up and braiding it up the same way a woman takes their wild strands and turns them into cornrows. That's what histones do to the DNA, and they do this through a process of acetylation and deacetylation, all right, through SIRT1 enzymes, and all of this is able to become more efficient, more refined when resveratrol, you know, is present in the body. It has those effects on it. So, you know, the histones allow what part of the DNA is going to get transcribed and not transcribed. So that's how a GMO can affect you, or that's how you can protect yourself from a GMO by way of the histones. So it gives your histones, you know, a great deal of health. So once again, tomorrow I'm going to get into the pregnant and breastfeeding mothers after I go into immunoblast, which is also in this immune system thing, and we're going to also touch on C3, you know, a little bit more as well. So once again, these are the different sales that I'm doing right now in regard to the Solstice sale. All right, we talked about obviously the immune system cleanse right here. You're getting up to 30% off. You know, this information is provided so you can get a better understanding, you know, of how this all is working. You know, and I want to make sure that, you know, y'all get an idea of how your body works. Then you'll have a better idea when you take certain things, it's able to help you, you know. So, you know, Instagram and on YouTube, I'm KT the Arch Degree. On Facebook, I'm Kamani Tate. All inquiries can be sent to luvgreenlife@gmail.com, you know, and my company is Green Life Botanicals, you know, because it's all about the green life. All right. So once again, histonic, you know, to sum it up, you know, what is histonic doing? What is Nervino doing? These are to get your nerves back in order. You want to get your nerves back in order, because if you don't get your nerves back in order, you don't have a means to communicate. How do you feel when you don't have your cell phone on you? How are you going to call in for your meetings? How are you going to be on time? How are you going to end the deal? You know what I mean? Close the deal that you have, you know, the quota that you have from your boss or whatever. All that represents communication. So imagine if that lack of communication existed in your body, you know. people will miss the bus, miss the plane, miss the train, okay, and be late. But in the body, with its metabolic processes though, you see, so you want to make sure that you take care of the membrane, like with the perilla oil, you know, that I'm talking about. You know, you want to make sure that there go the perilla oil right there. You want to make sure that you have things like the resveratrol, okay, that assists, you know, with inflammation, with the increase in mitochondria, regulating reactive oxygen species, which is a process where the mitochondria is able to create chemicals that blow the cell up. How do you get rid of cancer? Well, it's the mitochondria that do it. You have to have something that tells the mitochondria in the cancer cells to kill the cell, to blow up. And the mitochondria creates reactive oxygen species and explodes and kills that cell. All right. So then all cancer cells have their own marker on it. Like good cells can distinguish themselves from cancerous cells. So all those cancerous cells that are marked, those are the ones that end up getting blown up. You know, so once they, you know, get started and you start getting rid of things, you know. So once again, substantia nigra. Substantia means substance, negra means black. So this part of your brain is called the black substance, while this part of the brain, locus, means spot, like a mark, like local, all right? And ceruleus means blue, like a blue cerulean sky, okay, or cerulean waters, all right? So that means blue spot. So you got the blue spot, and then you have the black substance, and these are the two areas in the brain that are pretty much destroyed and stressed when someone has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, inflammation of the brain, any type of brain situation, trauma. So that's what the histonic is for. It's about remelanating these areas or recarbonating these areas, getting the melanin level up, bringing the ROS, reactive oxygen species level down, rebuilding the microtubules, getting the structure together, sending the signals properly so you can recall your memory, you know, live your life on a better level. And then this is also preventative. So for, you know, if you don't have a particular issue, you know what I'm saying, you can take these things to be optimum, to prevent things from coming on, you know, later on. So once again, we talked about the kidneys, we talked about the nerves a little bit, you know, and we talked about, you know, the ingredients in these particular packages that I'm speaking of. Once again, Green Life Botanicals, KT the Arts Degree, Instagram and YouTube, Kamani Tate on Facebook. Subscribe to my channel. I will be bringing more and more lovely information very soon. Peace.